10.
So, okay, here was Shane Green, and Shane has taken over a pasture, I guess on your dad's, where you grew up.
This is where I grew up.
And he was a horse pasture, I guess.
That's right.
Forever, and the starting conditions were like a horse pasture usually is.
Typical. Golf green looking.
with humps and a few weeds and things like that.
It's mostly Kentucky bluegrass.
Mostly Kentucky bluegrass. And was there anything else in it?
There was just smidgens of these other plants you see here now. There was a little smooth brome, a little orchard grass, a little white clover. We used to have a lot of black medic and some of this red clover, but it was sparse and it was mostly Kentucky bluegrass.
And so your dad let you take it over to try some. Oh, why did you want to try something different, or what was?
Trying to apply some of the knowledge that I'd learned in school and on the job, and trying to bring it home and share it with Dad. I could see the potential, and it's taken a while, but it's caught on. Dad kind of likes this.
Does he?
Yeah.
So you're not. He probably was guarded, but thought that go ahead and give her a try, and not much downside.
That's the way it went.
And so basically, you went to school and range at Utah State, right? Or,
yes.
And then went on to the NRCS, and.
Yep, I worked for the NRCS as a range conservationist.
Yeah,
been there
state
21 years
now, right?
Yeah, I'm a state range conservationist for Utah.
Okay. And so this is your home place. This is your private place. Allows you to apply everything you get to learn.
Yeah, you could say that. As long as Dad agrees, that's the way it goes.
And so anyhow, what you started changing the management of this 5 acres, basically, although there can be a little bit more sometimes, but the most has been 6.8 at some points.
Yes.
If he's given you another little piece, but
started in 96.
96 to 2012, and what we have here is we have these different years and have the acres that he was using, the number of head, and days and number of paddocks and frequency of moves or things like that. But Shane has other data that we might talk about here. But anyhow, the number of head looks to me like it's gone from about 6 to 10.
That's right.
And you actually think that next year you might have another 1 or 2 or something?
I don't want to boost it again next year. I think I'll get 10 and hope that we don't get cut on the water.
Okay.
We were on quarter water shares this year.
So this year
we barely made it.
This year was a quarter water share year.
Yes.
And you had that many more head.
And we still went with the 10. Yeah. And it worked out. It's going to work out, but just barely by the skin of our teeth. I want to see what 10 looks like on the end of the year with a good water year.
Okay.
Before
you boost it out.
Yeah.
And so here's these steers. The steers in the background. They came in weighing what this year?
These averaged 806 pounds, and they were a really uniform set of steers.
So they came in weighing 806 pounds.
Yes.
Has that been kind of what you've bought historically, or they varied quite a bit, or what?
The highest we ever brought in was 900, and the lowest we ever brought in was, it looks like 777. So it's basically it's 800 to 900 weights that we brought in.
And so 800 pounds to 900 pounds has been the variation, basically. And so this year they came in at 806. In the past, and what do you think their outweight might be, or maybe last year might be a better thing? What did they come in last year weighing?
That's going to take me some math.
Okay.
And the reason is I do that calculation in the background. They come in on hoof weight, and we buy them on hoof weight. They go out on hanging weight.
Oh, okay.
So I have to back calculate, and we assume it's 58% of hoof weight. The hanging weight's 58% of hoof weight. And that's been an assumption we've used because I don't know why we found that figure on the internet somewhere.
Yeah, that would be, especially something grass-fed. I imagine, they can have hook weights up to 62%, but I think if you're grass-fed, you'd have a little bit more bone to meat. So that's probably, I bet that's pretty close.
They're a little leaner. So the hanging weight that have gone out have ranged from 650 pounds on the high end to looks like 530 on the low end.
Okay, and so
that's hanging weight.
That's hanging weight. And so if we divided that by 0.58,
indeed, yeah,
that would give us some estimate of what they were on the hoof. So, but your gains, what have happened in general to gains over all these years?
Well, I did graph on gains. I've got gains per animal per day and total gain per acre per day. The gain per animal per day is the light colored line, and it's boosted basically from 1 pound to 2. Get down. Sorry about that. The gain per animal per day is gone up. It's basically doubled.
Wow.
From 1 pound to 2 pounds.
So it's gone.
And yeah, the gain per acre per day has gone up astronomically.
Oh, and so yeah, even though you got such a big scale, but you can see it's about 1 pound a day, and this actually
to 2 pounds.
To 2 pounds a day. So so not only has your number of head almost doubled over time, but your pound per head per day has gone to double also.
We've increased both, yeah.
Okay, wow. And how
in
many?
fact, more than double. Looks like we started out at 1.5 per acre per day, and now we're hitting 5.5.
Wow. So the gain per acre has gone from 1.5 pounds of gain per acre
to 5.5.
To 5.5 pounds per acre. And so that brings together both these factors of how many head and an average daily gain difference.
Yeah.
Of doubling the average daily gain plus doubling or more your number of cattle on the same acres.
Right. Both the amount of forage and its nutritive value has increased, and our management has caused, I think, some boosts in the animal performance as well. It's not all just about the grass. Offering them the same menu every day, offering them fresh feed every single day, keeps their diet constant, so they don't have to. The rumen doesn't have to adjust for forage quality that's going down over time.
Yeah.
And there's that getting fresh bread out of the oven effect every day, so they really load up when they get new pasture, and that happens every day.
And so the frequency of moves, what do you think has happened from early on?
We went from weekly, for most of this graph, it's been weekly, 7-day moves through 4 pastures. That took us from 96 to, say, 07.
So basically all the way to here.
Yeah, and then we went to 5-day moves.
And then you went to 5-day moves.
Yeah, and now we're doing daily moves.
Now it's daily.
Yeah, and it's not that much trouble, because somebody's living here and we have to come out to change the water all the time. So.
And so, have you seen it? Why did you go from weekly to 5 to daily moves? What would indicate to go ahead and do that?
We got the pasture about as good as it is right now, probably 2/3 of the way through this.
So somewhere
in there, the pasture peaked. The amount of forage that was being produced and the quality of forage was being produced. So from there on out, we're saying, how can we improve the animal performance? And it was actually in Jim Garish's book. There's one graph in the MIG grazing book that shows animal intake over 5 days when they're put into a fresh paddock. And it's double on the first day what it is on the 4th day. Okay.
Wow.
So I figure I want them to be on that first day every day. And so that's why I went to daily moves.
And so that kind of shows up in this graph right here.
It would be the
number of
gain.
head and the amount of gain. I mean, this scale is so tight between 1 and 2, it's hard to kind of see it. But somewhere in here, it's showing that you probably had greater gain. It's really it's fairly flat and it's hard to see. But then the number of head with that gain. I see. So now when you say your pasture peaked, what do you mean by it peaked? In what sense did it peak?
Well, Dad's keeping notes here, and he's writing this note about how much the pasture produced, whether they had to feed a couple bales at the end, whether they ran out of feed, how much clover was in the pasture. And he starts this note that says best pasture ever with clover at there. And that's just, based on our watching it change over time. They call it the sward, or how thick it is, how green it is. When the clover came in, and the nitrogen fixing that it provides, that's alleviated the need to ever fertilize this with nitrogen, which happened a few times back here.
So there was some fertilizer, some N fertilizer back in here.
Oh yeah, there
hasn't been for.
There were 2 years that they put fertilizer on back there.
So and now there's no fertilization.
Now there's no fertilizer. The legumes are here in force. I'm estimating at least 30% of the production is red clover. So the thickness
of the pasture changed a lot.
Yeah, the amount of forage changed. The blue, the Kentucky bluegrass is practically gone here. It's all been taken over by orchard grass and the red clover.
Wow.
And those are the plants that are doing it here for us.
Let's walk over and look at these cattle just a little bit with you in front of them. So you see there's a bit of a color difference in this pasture right here over this one. This one's got some more darkness to it.
This one's been rested for a little while. This is the pasture that they were in today. I'm taking this double height down really tight right now because it doesn't have to regrow anymore. This is the last time that it's going to get grazed this season. And so I'm taking the opportunity to clean up the clumps and the mature stuff that they've been skipping. And I think these cattle look pretty good for grass-fed cattle.
So you're guessing they're going to weigh 1,100 or something on the hook, or what?
That's the goal, is about 1,100 pounds this year.
And so how did you develop your grass-fed market?
Mostly word of mouth, but that has failed us in years past, and so this year I actually used social media. I made a Facebook page for the Hardscrabble Grass-Fed Beef Company, and that's been fun to watch. I've had new customers come out of the woodwork. The smallest increment that we have traditionally sold the beef in is a half a beef. Not many people, want to buy a half a beef, but they might go for a quarter. Well, I've got a butcher now that will agree to put up a quarter beef for a customer. So my customer base grew for those 2 reasons this year. And so this year, even though I bought 2 extra steers, I've been having to turn people away. And I've had some unique customers. Some of them want to come up here and see the pasture and see the calves and look at the farm. And so I've had that experience too.
Now, did you initially just have the 2 or whatever? Did you and your family eat them, and then
Yeah, initially it was just for the family thing, and it still feeds. The first beef go to me, my brother, my sister, and my dad. And we'll take Oh, this year I think we're just taking a whole beef for the 4 families. But we keep our freezers full first, and then we've just tried to push this pasture and see how much extra we could raise.
How have you determined how to price them?
I look at other people selling grass-fed meat, and kind of just tried to hit the middle of that market. I'll also, like all the butcher shops will have freezer beef that they'll sell by the side, and so they'll have a price based on hanging weight that they'll sell any. Was it grain-fed, hormones, antibiotics? People don't know, and that's the value that my customers see. A lot of them in buying from me is they know no hormones, no antibiotics, raised on grass, not grain-fed. Those are things they value. So I'll just add like a quarter or 30 cents to the over what the butcher has for per pound for basic beef, and that's it. Yeah.
So, do some people call and say, "Oh my God, that's so much higher than I expected," or is everybody kind of ready? They know that there's a quality and a value, or I mean, what's been the reaction of the customers?
I've had nobody balk at the price, and I've had 2 of the customers ask me, "How do you make money? This is a bargain."
Really?
Yes.
And so,
but these are people who are used to buying organic beef at Whole Foods Market for $15 a pound. And I'm like, well, mine doesn't have the organic label. You know, I'm still using fly powder because the horn flies are intolerable. That's a pesticide. But as far as being hormone-free, antibiotic-free, and grass-fed, no grain, this is your meat. A lot of people are concerned about the way the animals are treated and against factory farming. That's a segment of my customers, and they're used to paying extra for the meat that they get, and so buying it in bulk from me is actually a bargain for them.
And so, but you turned people away this year.
Yeah, I've had several people call me or message me on Facebook who just found the page randomly and say, "Do you have any more beef for sale?" And I have to say, "No, I'm sorry, I'm sold out this year."
That's cool. So actually, this has been a meaningful financial venture for a small family farm, or what am I trying to say?
It's meant something. You know, it's making enough money now that it could like pay college tuition for 1 or 2 kids on a year-to-year basis if everything went smooth.
Here you have a situation. Lots of people have 5 acres.
Yeah.
A lot more than, and they can provide a local product and a healthy product, and so, but and part of the health history of these is you get them from a large ranch that you know doesn't put grain in them either, and they're just running shearlings out on grass and that.
That's right. These cattle are raised on the range and are with their mothers for a long time. Even over the winter, they don't get fed hay. They're coming from a grass-fed lifetime. These spent 2 days in a feedlot between the time they were gathered off the range and when I picked them up.
So when you put a fork in them, what do you think of the taste?
I think it's a superior product to what you can get in the grocery store. Maybe that's just because I'm accustomed to it, but you hear the stories about the yellow fat, and they're dry and they're tough. That's not my experience. These, especially the hamburger, the flavor of the hamburger is superior to any hamburger you can get in the grocery. And well, you think about what they make hamburger out of: cutters, canners, old dairy cattle, and the scraps of the other grain-fed cattle. That, you know, and so it really shouldn't be a surprise. I think our culture is just brought up to believe that somehow you have to feed grain to animals to prepare them for the table, and that's just not so. I think if you tried to slaughter animals that came off a rangeland that had been eating dormant grass for a period of time, there might be some issues with the color of the fat and the flavor and the toughness. But if they're truly grass finished, where you're gonna take an animal and try to prepare it for slaughter on excellent feed, on the most nutritious forage you can find. Green, lush, grass, new growth, clover, and you do it for 5 months, I think that prepares that animal for the table.
So they're going from your home, they went from a big old ranch and came onto a really green feed, and they've been flushing out, and you've been taking care of them. You can see how docile they are, even with these great cow dogs out here helping the whole venture.
Indeed.
But you can tell they're just totally comfortable, and then I guess this coming week they'll go and they'll be nutrition for some willing and thankful families.
That's the way it works.
Well, thanks, Shane.
Thank
This
you.
was really good for us,
fun.
and it'll be fun to share this with my sister and the ranch. I have 80 acres in Idaho, and my sister runs it, and we have, of course, a big ranch. But just to share this, and hopefully it's a great way, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, it's been fun. I'm honored that you'd come, and I bragged to everybody that I sold a half a beef to Greg Simon.
All right. Well, okay. Well, that's cool. So does Jeff and them just pick some out for you?
Yeah, he's got a couple of cowboys.
I can't call myself a king or London or Spain, but I'm a king of dollar bills since I got paid today. I got paid today. When I'm feeling rich, I buy Marlboros and coffee. I treat them like cigars and running because no one can stop me. Take a walk around the block and whistle as I go. Take a small vacation and leave the phone
Here, and there's the bread from the oven.
for London or Spain, but I'm a
Better than the day old stuff over here. You know, and they want to take up on it.
And look at this, how much clover. So here's your orchard grass, isn't it?
Yeah.